My name is Jessica Witherell, and I'm 31. The text came in on a Thursday, one of those dull, beige days where nothing dramatic is supposed to happen. I was halfway through a turkey sandwich in my cubicle when my phone buzzed. I glanced down, expecting a delivery notification. Instead, it was my sister, Madison. Hey, sis, big news. I'm finally doing it. Quitting the salon tomorrow. Brandon and I talked it over, and we decided I need time to find myself. You'll take care of us while I figure things out, right? You've got that great job and no kids, so it just makes sense. We can move in next weekend. I read it once, then again. By the third time, my jaw felt locked, like my body was trying to stop me from saying something that would scorch the earth. Madison was 29, 2 years younger than me. She'd been a receptionist at a hair salon for 6 years, making decent money with tips, enough to be stable if she wanted to be. Her boyfriend Brandon was 32, a freelance graphic designer, which mostly translated to long gaming sessions with occasional logo work. They'd been together 4 years in a cramped apartment his parents partially subsidized. And now, with one cheerful paragraph, Madison had assigned me a new job title: provider, shelter, solution. My hands shook so hard the sandwich crinkled in its wrapper. It wasn't fear. It was the audacity, the casual certainty, the way she wrote it like we'd already agreed, like my life was a spare room waiting for her. I typed back with my thumbs hovering over the screen. Me. That's not on me. 3 little dots appeared immediately, disappeared, appeared again. Madison, what do you mean? We're family. This is what family does. I stared at that sentence until the letters blurred. Because in our family, family had never meant warmth. It meant obligation. It meant my name being said only when something needed fixing. I didn't respond. I stood up, still holding the half-eaten sandwich like it was evidence, and walked straight to my manager's office. Diana looked up from her monitor, surprised to see me hovering in the doorway with that expression I'd spent years perfecting. Calm on the surface, storm underneath. Everything okay? She asked. I swallowed. My voice came out steady. Too steady. Is the Singapore position still open? Her eyebrows climbed. The relocation role? Jessica, you said you couldn't possibly move internationally. I changed my mind. She studied my face like she was trying to find the fracture line. You're serious. I'm serious, I said. I want it. I'll sign today. A long pause, then she exhaled. It's a 3-year contract, big salary increase, full relocation package. Starts Monday. Perfect, I said, even though my heart was pounding like it was trying to outrun my past. 6 hours later, the contract hit my inbox. I signed it in my car in the parking lot, hands steady now, eerily steady, like something in me had finally accepted the truth. If I didn't leave, I would never be allowed to become a person. My phone buzzed again. Mom, Jessica Marie Witherell. Your sister just called me sobbing. She said you refuse to help her when she needs you most. How could you be so selfish? She's family. We take care of family. Call me immediately. There it was. The full name. The command tone. The old spell. For a moment, guilt tried to crawl up my ribs and wrap itself around my throat the way it always had. But something was different now. Something had snapped, clean, like a rope that had been fraying for years and finally gave up. I called her. She answered on the first ring like she'd been waiting with the phone in her hand. Jessica, thank God. Listen, Madison is really struggling right now. Mom, I cut in softly. I'm moving to Singapore on Monday. Silence. Not the normal kind. The kind where the world tilts and your body tries to catch up. You're what? She finally whispered, like saying it louder would make it less real. I accepted a job transfer, 3 years, maybe longer. Her breath hitched. You can't be serious. You can't just leave your family when we need you. Actually, I could. That was the point. I already signed the contract. A beat. This is because of Madison's text, isn't it? Her voice sharpened. You're being petty, spiteful. Something inside me, something old and buried, rose like a tide. You want to know what's petty, Mom? I asked, my voice calm enough to scare even me. Let me tell you a story. Jessica, no. You're going to listen. And before she could pivot to Madison's tears like they were the only ones that mattered, I opened the door to the memory I'd kept bolted shut. I was 17 when Dad died, I said. Even now, the words tasted metallic. Heart attack. Sudden. Brutal. He was the parent who actually saw me, came to my track meets, helped me with calculus homework. Remember that? Mom didn't answer. I kept going. The morning it happened, I was getting ready for school. Dad was at the kitchen table with his coffee and the newspaper like always. He looked up, smiled, and asked if I was ready for my history presentation. I said yes. He told me he was proud of me. My throat tightened, but I didn't let it win. 20 minutes later, you were screaming from the bedroom. I could still hear it sometimes, in quiet rooms, in the pause before sleep. The funeral was packed, I continued. People from his engineering firm, neighbors, everyone telling stories about his kindness. I stood there in a black dress I borrowed from my friend, shaking hands until my fingers went numb. Mom's voice came small. Jessica. Madison couldn't even get through the service, I said. She had a panic attack halfway through. You took her out. I sat in that pew alone, listening to the pastor talk about a man I would never see again. My grip tightened on the steering wheel, and something inside me went very quiet, I whispered, because I realized even then I didn't get to fall apart. After Dad died, everything changed. I was starting senior year. Madison was 15 and collapsed into grief like a house with no foundation. And I understood, grief isn't equal. But what followed wasn't grief. It was assignment. Madison got therapy, extended absences, your constant hovering. She was treated like fragile glass. I got expectations. You're so strong, Jessica, Mom used to tell me. You're handling this so well. I need you to be strong for your sister. I didn't get to be 17. I got to be a brace holding up a wall that kept leaning on me. I worked 20 hours a week at the grocery store, I reminded her, to help with bills, while Madison stayed home healing. I kept my grades up because I'd applied for scholarships. I had to get into college because we couldn't afford it otherwise. I heard her inhale like she wanted to argue, to rewrite it. So I didn't give her room. I got into UCLA with a full ride, I said. That scholarship covered everything. Tuition, room and board, books. And do you remember what you said? Mom's silence answered me. You cried, I said, but not happy tears. You said, it's so far away. How can you leave us right now? Madison still needs you. I need you. My laugh was sharp, humorless. And Madison threw a fit, I continued. She screamed that I was abandoning her, that I didn't care about the family, that I was selfish for applying somewhere that far. I could see it like it was on a screen. Her red face, her hands knocking things off my dresser, the way your eyes stayed on her like I was a shadow. You told me I could go to community college here, I said quietly, to save money, to be close to home where I was needed. I breathed in slowly. But the scholarship covered everything, and some part of me knew, if I didn't take it, I'd never escape the role you assigned me. I let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. Then I said the sentence that had been waiting 15 years for air. So yeah, Mom, I'm moving to Singapore on Monday. Her voice trembled, anger wrapped in panic. Your father would be so disappointed in you right now. The words should have crushed me. They would have once. But instead, something cleared inside me like fog lifting. No, I said, and I meant it. Dad would be proud that I'm finally putting myself first. My hands weren't shaking anymore. He's the one who taught me I was worth something, I continued, voice low. You're the one who taught me I was only valuable for what I could give everyone else. And before she could twist it, before she could turn it into another debt, another demand, I hung up. In the dead quiet of my car, I stared at the signed contract glowing on my phone screen. Singapore. 3 years. An ocean between me and the role that was killing me slowly. My phone buzzed again. Another message, another attempt to pull me back into the same story. This time I didn't open it. I started the engine. And for the first time in my life, choosing myself didn't feel like cruelty. It felt like survival. College was supposed to be my clean break. UCLA felt like another planet compared to home. Sunlight on concrete, people rushing with purpose, the hum of possibility everywhere. I told myself that once I crossed state lines, things would change. That distance would soften the grip my family had on my chest. I was wrong. The first month, I called home every single day. Not because I wanted to, but because I was terrified of what would happen if I didn't. Madison refused to speak to me. When Mom got on the phone, she sighed heavily before every sentence, like the weight of the world rested on her lungs. She cried all through dinner, Mom would say. She locked herself in her room again. She's not eating properly, Jessica. The implication was always the same. This is your fault. I offered to come home on weekends. Mom said that would just make it harder when I left again. I suggested video calls. Madison refused. I sent care packages, snacks she liked, inside jokes written on sticky notes, handwritten letters that took hours. None of them were acknowledged. By October, I was having panic attacks alone in my dorm room, convinced I'd made the worst mistake of my life. My roommate, Sarah, finally cornered me one night after I'd hung up another call with Mom, my hands shaking so badly I couldn't hold my phone. Jessica, she said carefully, sitting on my bed, your family is manipulating you. I laughed. Too fast, too loud. They're not, they're just grieving. She didn't back down. They want you so guilty that you drop out and come home. Can't you see that? I defended them. Of course I did, because believing my family loved me, even badly, felt safer than believing they needed me broken. Still, Sarah's words planted a seed. I worked 2 jobs through college, tutoring during the day, shelving books at the library at night. I maintained a 3.9 GPA and slept in 4-hour stretches. I flew home for every holiday, paying for plane tickets I couldn't afford. Madison tried community college for 1 semester. Then she dropped out. She needs time to find her passion, Mom said, like it was wisdom instead of permission. When I graduated and landed my first real job, the shift was subtle, but unmistakable. Mom never asked me directly for money. She didn't have to. The electric bill was high this month, she'd mentioned casually. Madison needs new tires. The house needs repairs. Each time I transferred money. Each time I told myself it was temporary. My starting salary was $52,000 a year. It felt enormous until taxes, rent, student loans, and the steady drip of money flowing back home turned it into something fragile. One month I sent $600 to cover Madison's car insurance after she'd let it lapse. That same week my own car broke down. I needed $400 for repairs. I didn't have it. I borrowed from Sarah, now living in Seattle, paying her back $50 at a time while eating ramen and pretending everything was fine. This is insane, she told me. You're going into debt to fund your sister's irresponsibility. It's temporary, I insisted. Sarah was quiet for a beat. Then, Jessica, she's never going to get on her feet if you keep catching her every time she falls. Madison moved out at 23 to live with her first serious boyfriend. 8 months later, he kicked her out for cheating. She moved back home. Mom called me at 2 a.m., nearly hysterical. She won't stop crying. She won't eat. I'm really worried about her. Can you come home this weekend? She needs to see you. I took a personal day, drove 4 hours, and spent the weekend listening to Madison sob about how all men were trash. She barely acknowledged me, except Sunday night when I was leaving. Can you leave me some cash for gas and food? I handed her $120. It was every dollar in my wallet. Then I sent Town $200 to cover her credit card debt. Then came Brandon. At first, he seemed different. He had a job, his own apartment. Madison moved in after 3 months. Mom was thrilled. See, she said, she's finally getting her life together. I believed it. I wanted to. But the calls crept back in. Could you help with Madison's car payment just this once? Could you loan them money for rent? Could you cover the pet deposit? They really need the dog for emotional support. Every request came with the same promise. This is the last time. Last Christmas broke something in me. I spent $800 on gifts for Madison and Brandon, flew home for 4 days, another $650 on plane tickets. Madison gave me a $15 candle from Target. Mom gave me a framed childhood photo I was pretty sure had been sitting in the attic for years. The candle still had the clearance sticker on the bottom. I found it later, unpacking alone in my apartment. I sat on my bed holding it, and something inside me cracked, not shattered. Cracked, like a windshield before it gives way completely. That year, I'd bought Madison a $350 professional makeup kit she'd been hinting about. Brandon got a $200 gaming headset. Mom got a $250 spa package. I'd spent hours choosing them, trying to prove something I didn't even have words for. On Christmas Eve, Madison announced she was thinking about going back to school for massage therapy. It's about $8,000, she said, smiling brightly. Her eyes were on me. Everyone was in the living room. Mom, Madison, Brandon, aunts, uncles, cousins. That's great, I said slowly. How are you planning to pay for it? The room went quiet. Madison's smile faltered. Well, I was hoping, you've always been so good about helping me invest in my future. Invest, like I was a bank. I'll think about it, I said, changing the subject. Later, Mom pulled me aside. You don't have kids. You make good money. Madison is really trying. I promised to consider it. I never sent the money. Months later, a cousin told me the truth. Madison had already been accepted into the program. She'd been telling people I was paying for it, bragging about her generous older sister. When the tuition deadline passed and I didn't send money, she told everyone I'd backed out, that I'd promised and betrayed her. I was the villain in a story I didn't even know existed. 3 months ago, Madison asked me to co-sign a loan for a new car. I said no. For the first time in my life, I said no. She didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. When she finally did, her texts were polite, but cold, transactional, like I'd failed an invisible test. All of it poured out of me on the phone with Mom the night I told her I was leaving. "I have given everything to this family," I said, my voice eerily calm, "and nobody has ever asked me what I need." "That's not fair," Mom snapped. "We've always appreciated you." "Appreciation isn't asking for more money," I said. "It isn't expecting me to derail my life because Madison doesn't feel like working." She tried one last weapon. "Your father would be disappointed." That was when I realized something vital. They didn't love me for who I was. They loved me for what I could absorb. And I was done being the shock absorber. That night, as I packed boxes in my apartment, my phone buzzed again and again. Calls I didn't answer, messages I didn't read. For the first time, I didn't feel cruel. I felt awake. The next 3 days were chaos. Madison called me 17 times. I didn't answer a single one. Her voicemails came in waves, each one peeling back a new layer of her panic. At first, she sounded wounded. "How can you do this to me? I'm your sister." Then angry. "You're being selfish. You always think you're better than everyone else." Then desperate. "Please just talk to me. I don't know what I'm supposed to do." I listened to every voicemail once. Then I deleted them. Some part of me needed to hear them, to understand exactly what I was walking away from. That last message stuck with me the longest. Her voice was small, genuinely afraid. The old version of me would have folded, would have called back, apologized, negotiated some compromise where I still lost. The new version kept packing. Mom's messages were longer. Paragraphs about family obligation, about how she raised me better than this. She cycled through guilt, anger, then bargaining. What if Madison promises to get another job? What if she only stays with you a few months? What if we all just talk this out? Between Mom's texts came messages from people I barely knew. Madison's friends, old acquaintances, even a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. "How can you abandon her like this? She's always talked about how close you two are. Family is supposed to be there for each other." I blocked every number I didn't recognize. Then I blocked a few I did. The contrast was brutal. My best friend Jessica, who'd known me since college, sent one text. "Finally, I'm so proud of you." She came over with boxes and tape, helped me pack, didn't ask me to justify myself even once. Sarah called from Seattle. "You actually did it," she said. Half laughing, half crying. "You chose yourself." People who cared about me were excited. People who used me were furious. Friday afternoon, a Facebook message came through from Tyler, Madison's ex from years ago. "Hey, I heard what's going on. Just wanted to say good for you. Madison told everyone I was the bad guy when we broke up, but the truth is she was using me the whole time. Cheated. Maxed out a credit card I stupidly put her on. Played the victim when I kicked her out." I stared at the screen longer than I wanted to admit. Madison had always painted herself as the victim in that relationship. I'd believed her because she was my sister. Because family believes family. How many stories had I swallowed without question? I replied once, "I'm moving to Singapore on Monday. This decision is final. I need space." Then I muted the thread. Saturday night, my apartment was half empty. Boxes stacked against the walls like barricades. Sunday morning, I got an email from Mom. Subject, "Please read, important." It was long, careful, reflective. She wrote about how she'd been thinking, how maybe she'd put too much pressure on me over the years, how she wanted to understand my perspective. For a moment, I wavered. Then I reached the last paragraph. "I really think you're making a huge mistake with this Singapore job. It's so far away. And what if something happens to Madison or me? What if we need you? You only get one family." I deleted it. Monday morning, my apartment was empty except for the suitcases I was taking with me. Everything else was in storage. My phone rang as I loaded my car. A number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Jessica, it's Brandon." I almost hung up. "What do you want?" He sighed heavily, like I was exhausting him. "Madison's been crying for days. She really thought you'd help us out." "Did Madison put you up to this?" "No, she's really upset. We were counting on you." "You were counting on me funding your girlfriend's unemployment while she finds herself," I said flatly. Do you hear how insane that sounds? "It's not like that. She just needs time." "Why can't you support her?" I asked. Silence. "My design work is inconsistent right now," he finally said. "And my parents said they'd cut me off if Madison moved back in." The entitlement hit me like cold water. "So your solution was to make me responsible for both of you?" "You don't have kids," he snapped. "You make good money. It wouldn't have been that hard." That was it. "This conversation is over," I said. "Don't call me again." I blocked the number and drove to the airport. The flight to Singapore was 16 hours with a layover in Tokyo. I slept through most of it, the deep, dreamless kind of sleep I hadn't had in years. My body understood freedom before my mind did. Singapore was overwhelming in the best way. Humidity wrapped around me like a blanket. The city buzzed with movement, languages blending together, lights reflecting off water. My corporate apartment was small but modern, overlooking Marina Bay. The office was sleek and efficient. My coworkers were welcoming. I woke up at 3 a.m., every night at first, jet-lagged and wide awake. I'd sit on the tiny balcony watching the city wake up, lights flickering on one by one. Everything here worked. The trains ran on time, people queued politely. The streets were spotless. For the first time in my life, I wasn't managing chaos. I was just living. My manager, Cheney, was sharp and observant. During our first one-on-one, she studied me carefully. "You seem relieved," she said. "Not excited, relieved." I hesitated, then told the truth. "Both," I said. "I'm running from something and towards something better." She nodded. "That's okay. Just make sure you don't forget to live." For 2 weeks, I kept my phone on airplane mode except for work emails. When I finally turned messaging back on, there were 127 texts from Mom and 89 from Madison. I didn't read most of them. I sent one message to the family group chat. "I'm settled in Singapore and doing well. I'm not available for financial support anymore. I love you, but I need to prioritize my own life." The responses were mixed. Some relatives sent congratulations. Others stayed silent. Madison said nothing. Weeks passed. I made friends, real ones. I explored hawker centers, gardens by the bay, took a weekend trip to Bali. I met Ethan, a software engineer from Chicago, at a board game night hosted by coworkers. He was funny, attentive, uncomplicated. We started dating slowly. Then his ex-girlfriend, Lena, reached out. Not aggressively, but just enough to stir doubt. Old patterns of insecurity flared, and for a moment, I almost fell back into over-explaining, over-giving. But this time I set boundaries, and Ethan respected them. That was new. 6 weeks into my new life, I unblocked Mom and Madison. That's when the real silence started. Then, one night, an email from Madison appeared. Not a text. An email. And everything shifted. The email from Madison sat in my inbox for a full day before I opened it. Not because I didn't want to read it, but because I was afraid of what it might pull out of me if I did. I'd learned in Singapore that silence could be protective, that not every message deserved immediate access to my nervous system. When I finally clicked it open, the tone was different right away. Not defensive, not demanding, not performative. Just tired. "Jess, I don't really know how to say this. I've been really angry at you, but Jessica, your friend, said some things that stuck with me. She told me I've been taking advantage of you for years and didn't even realize it." I kept reading. At first, I got defensive. I wanted to say she didn't understand our family, but then I started thinking about it, about all the times you helped me and how I never really thanked you. I just assumed you'd always be there. There it was. The assumption. I got a job. Actually, 2. I'm at a different salon during the day, and I bartend 3 nights a week. Brandon and I broke up. He wasn't willing to work harder, and I realized I was dating someone who wanted to coast on other people's money. Kind of like I was doing. My chest tightened. "I'm not asking you to come back or forgive me. I just wanted you to know I'm trying to do better. I'm sorry for how I treated you. You deserve better from me." I read it 5 times. Then I cried. Not the sharp, panicked crying I'd done for years, but the quiet kind. The kind that lets air back into your lungs. I replied carefully. "Thank you for reaching out. I'm proud of you for taking those steps. I'm not ready for regular communication yet, but I appreciate the apology. Take care of yourself." It wasn't reconciliation, but it was real. Mom was harder. She called once a month, usually around dinner my time, which was early morning for her. The conversations were stiff. She struggled to ask about my life without pivoting to her own struggles. One night, after a call where she spent 40 minutes talking about how hard everything was without me, something slipped out. "Mom," I said quietly, "you made me responsible for holding this family together when I was 17. Silence. "You put adult burdens on me while letting Madison stay a child," I continued. "You taught me that my value came from what I could provide, not who I was. That's why I left." Her voice wavered. "I did the best I could after your father died." "I know," I said gently, "but your best wasn't good for me. And I need you to acknowledge that instead of making me feel guilty for protecting myself." A long pause. "I'll try," she said finally. "This is hard for me." 6 weeks later, my phone rang on a Tuesday. Mom never called on Tuesdays. "Jessica," she said, her voice trembling, "I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. "They found something on my mammogram. It's breast cancer, stage 2. The world narrowed to the sound of her breathing. "What's the treatment plan?" I asked, steady because someone had to be. "Surgery, then radiation. They're optimistic, but I'm scared." For the first time in years, she didn't sound like she needed my money. She just needed me. "I'm here," I said. "I can't fly home right now, but I'm here." We talked weekly after that, real conversations. About fear, about dad, about life. She apologized. Really apologized. "I leaned on you because you were strong," she said one night, "but I never asked if you should have been." I cried then, the deep healing kind. Madison stepped up during treatment. She drove Mom to appointments, stayed overnight after surgery, managed medications. She sent me updates and photos. In one picture, Mom was in a hospital gown, Madison wearing a ridiculous gift shop wig, both of them making faces at the camera. "We miss you," Madison texted, "but we're okay." 6 months later, Mom's scans were clear. I flew home during her final radiation week. Everything felt smaller. The house, the rooms, the old weight. Madison picked me up at the airport. She hugged me tight. "I missed you," she said. "I missed you too." We didn't fall back into old patterns. No one asked me for money. No one guilted me for leaving. On my last night, we sat in the backyard with wine and photo albums. "I almost destroyed this family," Mom said quietly. "When you left, I was furious. But you didn't abandon us. You saved yourself." Madison wiped her eyes. "I was treating you like a bank account, not a sister." It was the most honest conversation we'd ever had. Back in Singapore, my life continued to grow. I signed a permanent contract, got promoted, built friendships that felt mutual. I kept dating Ethan, healthy, respectful, uncomplicated. 3 years after I left, Madison visited, paying her own way. We did all the tourist things. On her last night, she said, "I get why you stayed. You're lighter here." 4 years in, I was promoted to regional director at 35. Last month, Madison sent me a photo. She was holding the keys to her own salon. "Did it myself," she wrote. "No one's money but mine." That night, I stood on my balcony overlooking the Singapore skyline, lights stretching like stars. My phone buzzed, friends making weekend plans, Ethan bringing Thai takeout, a full life. I didn't regret leaving. I hadn't abandoned anyone. I'd finally stopped abandoning myself. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is step back and let people grow. It took an ocean between us, but it worked.